friends, welcome to our Midweek Moment. Pastor Nicole here. So glad you clicked on. This week we continued on in our sermon series Sabbath 101, How to Create Sacred Space, by talking about how on Sabbath we need to prioritize enjoyment over productivity. And on the surface, that sounds really easy, right? We want to do things that we enjoy. We want to have fun. So of course we can prioritize enjoyment, right? But what I think we forget is how wired we are for productivity. We talked about this in the sermon, how particularly in our culture, we are wired to produce. We are wired to go, 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 go. And we are often valued for what we produce. And so it is hard for us to put production aside and just enjoy life sometimes. Sometimes we find it really hard to do that. But Sabbath is the stopping day. Remember, Shabbat, Sabbath means stop. And so it's the stopping day. We need to stop being productive and instead focus on enjoyment. This past weekend in my life, we were cleaning the parsonage because we were having our annual trustee walkthrough this week. And so each day we kind of had a list of chores we needed to get done. And on Sunday, we were doing some chores, and my son was like, "Mom, I don't want to do chores. I don't want to clean my room. It's my Sabbath." And I thought, oh, isn't he listening and watching? And he's right. Sabbath isn't made for being productive. It isn't made for cleaning your room or cleaning your house or checking things off of your to-do list. Sabbath is for enjoyment, and it's for connection with God, and it is time set apart from the rest of the week. And so I'll chalk that up to a mom and pastor failure. It's like a duo failure right there, that we were focusing on cleaning on what he saw as his Sabbath, which of course is his Sabbath. So that got me thinking about how important it is that we begin to model this for our children when they are young, so that they grow up knowing that this is a normal thing to do, and so that they aren't then trying to shift it back later in life, trying to shift and make room for Sabbath. Instead, there's always been room for Sabbath. I often think about my dad. On Sunday mornings, my dad is an early riser. He owns a business, and so he is up and out the door by about 4:30 every morning. And so on Sundays, he would sleep in a little bit, but sleeping into him was still getting up quite early. And he would get up, get ready, and then he would wake the rest of us up to get ready for church. And I have vivid memories of walking around the house, kind of getting ready, and my dad just sitting in his chair, reading his Bible and his devotionals. And I knew that he did that every day. I knew that that was a practice that he did every day. But on Sabbath, I was able to see it. And so that model for me in my life has been so influential. I think about that a lot. Almost every time I sit down and do my devotions, I think about my dad and how faithfully he read and reads his Bible and his devotions every day, and how that made an impact on how I practice my faith. And I'm so grateful for that influence. My mom, too, would do devotions with us kids growing up. We would have time in the evening when we would read devotions as a family before bedtime. And those practices are steeped deeply in my spirit. And so I often think about, how am I modeling for my children my faith practices? You know, a lot of times I read my devotions and my scripture after they get on the school bus, and so they don't see it. But if I leave it out on the table, they see that it's there and that it's a part of my life. And so I want to make sure that I am instituting practices that my family is experiencing as well, that my kids are seeing and participating in. So if they see me enjoying my Sabbath, which is Friday instead of Sunday, if they see me enjoying my Sabbath, I want them to then be able to see and enjoy their Sabbath, which is on a Sunday. So modeling for our children, modeling for our grandchildren, for any child in our life, for our spouse, for our friends, that Sabbath is different than the other 6 days a week. We live it differently. And that's really what this whole series has been about, is ideas of how we can live Sabbath differently so that it impacts our spiritual lives, and that will then impact our everyday life. So I want to encourage you to think about that this week. How are you Sabbathing and setting examples for people in your life to see that Sabbath is separate, different, and it makes you different, right? It makes you set apart and different too. So I hope you'll join us this weekend as we wrap up our series. We are going to be talking about how we need on Sabbath to be more focused on the present rather than the future. I think that's really hard for a lot of people to live in the now, right? So we're going to be talking about that this weekend as we wrap up that series. So please join us either in person or online for that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And I hope you can think about how on your Sabbath this week, you are going to prioritize joy over production. How are you going to find ways to focus on enjoyment over productivity? I will see y'all next time. Bye.